Good evening, everyone. My name is Yvette. I lead marketing and event production at NextGenChef. Very passionate about innovative food tech, which is why I joined this amazing team. I'm here with Justine and Rochelle. Hi, team. You're a group of wonderful ladies who want to connect people with each other, bring education and innovation. We have been impacted by COVID-19, but we're keeping it nimble, and eventually we made this event online, and we want to provide the same kind of human interaction and connection given all the limitations. So thank you everyone for being here. It's so good to see your lovely faces, and thank you for being part of our community. Today, our panel is going to be two parts. The first part will touch on how accessible healthy food is to the masses today. And then we'll have a short break led by our certified yoga instructor, Rochelle. And then following that quick yoga session, if you can see on this program flyer, we will have a Q&A where everyone will be put into breakout rooms and have an intimate networking session and having Q&A if you have particular questions to ask our panelists. Then we'll reconvene here in the main room at 7 o'clock and continue to talk about the elephant in the room, how COVID-19 is impacting food businesses as well as individuals. Then hopefully we'll wrap up at around 7:30 and then to continue the rest of your evening. Now, I would like to present to you our panelists today. We have Zuleika Strassner, who is the CEO and founder of ZeroShop.co, as well as Rob Eisenbach, who is the founder of Iron River Branding. Would you two like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I can go first. Thank you so much, Yvette, for hosting this in NextGenChef. Hello to everybody. I hope everybody is keeping well. My name is Zuleika, as you heard. I'm the founder and CEO of Zero. You can find us at zeroshop.co, not .com. All the cool kids live at .co these days. I founded the company in 2019. We are the very first plastic-free online grocery store, serving next day delivery of over 350 items that are completely plastic free. As you can probably hear, I'm from England originally. I grew up in London. I studied politics at Oxford. I had a career in politics in the UK. And following that, I worked in EdTech and then in VC. And now I am the founder of my very own online grocery delivery service.
Fantastic. Rob, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Absolutely. Sorry about the technical difficulties on my part. Finally figured it out. Seems that anytime I use my AirPods with a Zoom, it like worked maybe 60% of the time. Anyway, I'm Rob Eisenbach. I'm the founder of Iron River. We're a consultancy focused on mission-driven companies in food, fitness, health and wellness, nutrition, etc. Pretty much any company that aligns with my mission to improve the health of people and planet. My background is in consumer products for roughly 15 years, in and out of food companies. Specific food experience was at Nabisco, to Spunkmeyer, and then a bunch of clients through my roles, both now and in previous consulting firms. Excited to be here and looking forward to this topic.
Amazing. Today, we were also expecting Megan from Byte Technology, but as we all understand, work from home is hard, and it's harder to work from home as well as parents at the same time. So that's that's what happened to Megan today. She's a proud mother of 3, and then even though we miss her, but we understand it's hard to parent and then have all this going on at the same time. But we will start with our first question to the panelists. The concept of healthy food accessibility is becoming a buzzword. Everyone's using it. It's in policy reports, international summits, as well as smartphone apps. But what exactly does that mean? Would you share your interpretation of food accessibility?
Zuleika, do you want to take this one? It's really not my expertise. I'm happy to give my definition. So I'll give my definition. I'm holding my space bar. To me, it's not just food within reach, or it's affordable. I think those are the first 2 things that come to my mind. But it's also is the knowledge accessible, because I feel like there's just a gap in knowing what to eat, what's healthy for you, how to eat it, how to prepare certain foods, really. And even like how much you should pay for them and why it's important. And if without that information, it's hard to make them a priority in your life. So that's my thought.
Zuleika, you're on mute.
I'm unmuted. I'm happy to also just talk about this question of food accessibility. It's interesting. I agree with what Rob is saying, and the internet in particular has changed that around the democratization of knowledge and the ability to include myself and my friends to learn about different foods. I think accessibility for me is related in particular to price point, and then actually being able to physically access those foods. I think when I came to this industry, I grew up in London. My family didn't have a lot growing up, and we were very conscious of what we were able to put on the table. And a lot of that was around the ability to afford certain foods. And in particular, when we look at organic produce, and at Zero, we sell predominantly organic produce, and we're about 10 to 15% cheaper than other brick and mortar stores and other online grocery stores. It's how do you make good quality food, organic food, healthy food, a wide array of food, also foods that are specific to certain populations, certain ethnicities, certain groups. To be able to access those foods at a lower price point is absolutely key, so we don't create some type of food bourgeoisie that exists. And then the second is really around physically getting those products. So when we look at food deserts in this country, in particular, we have huge swathes of this country who oftentimes can be up to 100 miles away from organic food or a range of organic food, let alone accessible organic produce or organic produce that is within their budget. So the question is, how do you get millions of Americans access to foods that maybe are only available to a small sub-portion? And how do you democratize healthcare, and how do you democratize wellness and good eating?
That's a very comprehensive overview. Thank you, Rob and Zuleika. Absolutely. Brilliant point on the dual-pronged approach to tackling accessibility of food. So it's absolutely price and physical access. I think Rob also mentioned education, which is pretty interesting because I think there is the aspect of cultural appreciation as well. So depending on what community you come from, nutritious foods can mean different things to you, or people don't have the access of knowledge to understand what's good for their bodies. And following Zuleika's point on food deserts, I think is a good segue into our next question. What are the biggest things in food tech right now that's disrupting the landscape of food accessibility? And would you like to share this very relevant question in how tech is impacting grocery deliveries and how that is changing food accessibility for everyone?
That's to me again.
Yeah, Zuleika, you want to take that?
It's so hard to know who's going to answer. I want to hear from everybody else too. You know, I think tech really is the key to a lot of this, because we exist right now with near no technologies oftentimes in what we call the supply chain, or at times some legacy technology that inherently makes a lot of these processes more expensive, or inherently makes these processes a lot more cumbersome than they need to be. Here at Zero, when we came to kind of building what is a grocery store in 2020, very differently from how online grocery stores were built just 7 or 10 years ago, we were very mindful of technologies that impact the product end to end. So by that we mean how product is both manufactured and sourced and packed, and how it moves through the supply chain in particular. And how do you build overarching technologies that are far more connected, not just technologies that are around, you know, routing drivers in a particular way, or just simply optimizing efficiencies of how quickly somebody can pull from the shelves of Whole Foods or Safeway, for example. And we've seen technologies change through this period to where now we see ourselves much more as a tech-enabled grocery store, as opposed to what we had seen in the last 10 years, which was a distancing from tech companies from the actual grocery piece of what they were doing, to say we are simply a logistics infrastructure. So they had very little connection to the actual food, or to the farmers, or the manufacturers, or the producers. So we set out on a mission to ensure that our tech plugs into all parts of that supply chain. And for us, that was integral, because how do you get, let alone 350 things, how do you get 50 things or 100 things plastic-free out to the masses? And we found very, very quickly that the existing systems didn't work for us, and then there was a need for technologies to enable those things to happen. So when you work with a producer or a manufacturer, people often think that manufacturers don't have these intentions to either be more sustainable or intentions for more technology. The truth is they do. They just need to be presented with solutions and partners that can fit in with what they're currently doing. And we found that as we can build out those solutions and those technologies, we can bring about the change in sustainability in particular in our use case.
That's very interesting. Because in our previous conversation, I like to share with everyone that Zuleika mentioned the availability of big data and how that impacts the food space, because businesses now can optimize efficiency as well as reduce plastic. I think that is so important in solving this dilemma. How do you make good organic nutritious food cheaper, which is the value proposition of Zero from my understanding. But because you can reduce redundant processes and optimize the supply chain, you can help that to bring down the cost and then lower the price for the consumers. Would you say that?
Yeah, a big part of that is the democratization of that data in the very first place. So how do you enable both a farmer and a large CPG company and a small sale, a smaller size or a mid-size, you know, granola producer, for example, to get data that they've never really had before, rich data around the types of demographics that are using their and consuming their products, not only maybe their products, but other products that are similar to their products. How much more quickly can you get their product to market? How much more quickly can you cycle data back to those individuals, back to those companies? And particularly when we think about the data piece, again, historically, certainly for the last decade or so, it's existed within the upper echelons of the industry, or it's existed in the hands of quote unquote technologists, rather than trying to now move that data across to many more players within the field in particular, and be able to supercharge them with that data. If farmers have that level of data, but not just the data, they have the tools that you've already created that you can essentially allow them to plug into. And that's also very, very important. You have to work within the systems and processes they already have to be able to supercharge them, rather than wholesale either trying to upsell them something or try to give them something that is just not compatible with the way that they work. Now, if you're able to push data down the entire supply chain, we're all enriched in the way that we can get product to market. But we go back to the question of who controls margins and what those margins are within the industry. we understood very early on that we had to accept, rightfully, a smaller margin share in terms of marking up our product in lieu of trying to have a customer base and a real community that we deliver to more often. And which is why we have a membership model where our members pay $25 a month to be a member, to ensure that we're building a community where we can drive down the price of those groceries, and we can help, which is why you'll see on our platform, we can help both small and mid-size. We're more than 50% local. So you will see large-scale CPG companies on our platform. You will see a lot of local on our platform as well. You'll see coffee that's roasted right here in Oakland, for example, by a company that is run by a father and son that have been in business for 3 years, 3.5 years actually, that are now on the shelves of places like Whole Foods and Rainbow Grocery, as well as in Zero. And for a lot of these guys, this is types of data they have never had before, or they have never seen before. And as we work with them to understand what is it that you need insights to, that you previously haven't had insights to, what will help your business to grow over competitors or legacy competitors.
I think that's a very, very powerful message that we were talking about the democratization of data. This reminds me of a piece I read on how grocery delivery platform Foxtrot is helping a local neighborhood grocery store, specialty store that's called Mercado. This is in New York, I believe. And it's also the idea of how small businesses who don't have the technical knowledge and who are also put off by the technical appeal of it, and then because of that obstacle, they can't take advantage of the primacy of first-party data, which we all agree on is really important right now. They can't take advantage of that, and that's hurting their businesses. So that's where kind of like mission-driven tech companies come in, and they create like a white label solution for the mom and pop grocery stores or consumer goods who otherwise don't have the technology. And so like if those tech companies can share the insights to help the small businesses to optimize their business operations, that's going to help them to level up and not just demise in this major tech disruption scene. And I think that's has a lot of value to it. So our next question is regarding brand communication. I know today we have a few brand strategists, so this could be interesting. The question is, do retailers as well as brands have an obligation to encourage customers to change their eating habits? Or on the other hand, should they act as an unbiased market platform? I know Rob is very experienced in branding strategies as well as working with mission-driven companies. Would you like to share your idea on
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks. Yeah, my perspective on this is pretty strong. I think the brands, it's a no-brainer, and I can start there in terms of whether or not they should be encouraging healthy eating and wellness. And this, you know, especially in any purpose-driven food business, I can't imagine one that wouldn't have a value that was primary around wanting its consumers to live healthy and well lives. So that's pretty clear. And from an execution, you know, brands really have an opportunity to really build their brand around giving that voice, right? To define a clear set of values for their company and bring them to life in their social media, on their packaging, pretty much in everything they do, you know, matching their words and their actions. You know, on the retail side, it's interesting because, you know, one could argue both sides, but I feel like they also have a moral obligation to the health of their customers. No business should be in business if what they're selling is not inherently good for you, or you're not giving them enough information for how to use it appropriately, right? And that's not to say that You know, grocery stores can't sell soda or cookies or other things that maybe are high in sugar. But it's also having information available for what a balanced meal looks like all day. And I feel like store brands really build their brand by having that information, because it really shows that they care about their consumer. And furthermore, it helps them build, you know, through education, they're building consumption in different lines. And so it's in their best interest, both ethically to do so, but also from the, you know, the bottom line of profit, by building these relationships and taking a more stewarded role in that.
I also agree that the companies are having a feeling a push from the consumer side to be more health driven and consumer focused. Would you share like from your experience, if not if allowed, what are some of the case studies that you've seen where the companies do an excellent job in making the information transparent and communicating those effectively? So like how to create transparency, communicating what goes into the ingredients.
Right, right. And are you're addressing that to me, I guess, Yvette?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I haven't seen any case studies on the retailer side. I know anecdotally that, you know, my mother lives in North Carolina. She goes to Harris Teeter. They have cooking classes. You know, some retailers are really into this, and they provide information. If you walk through the store, there's all kinds of information, because what they do, and I've read this about them, is they really do try to educate, and they try to introduce new products, new vegetables, right? One of the buzzy things that goes around right now is how we try to diversify what we eat. We're not eating the same foods all the time. To try to bring in new ingredients, new vegetables, new whatever into our diets, and the health benefit of doing that. So I've seen this specifically in some retailers there. And I think, again, kind of to my earlier point, doing so just makes good business sense, because you're building businesses, you're building a relationship, and ultimately you're doing the right thing. And so from, you know, would you think about brand strategy, especially one that's based on mission and values, which is what I build with my clients. You know, building your brand on a foundation of mission and values really has huge benefits for your customers, for your employees, for your vendor partners. Like, everyone who works with you is proud to work with a company that does it from a mission and value standpoint, right? And so that's great brand building, but it's just also great business building. So I think the evidence of doing that just makes sense. I haven't seen necessarily, you know, a case study per se that says, you know, from like a business result standpoint, doing that added X or Y to their bottom line or their profit. But intuitively, it just makes sense to me that it would. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Very interesting. I have more questions around, but we have been doing most of the talking. Is there anyone from our audience who would like to share, for example, what do you think is an ingredient that you have questions about whether it's healthy or not? So there has been a lot of debate around GMO for decades of times. You know, anyone has a thought on that? See that.
We also just have a few people that just joined us live on Instagram. So in case you guys have any questions, just participate.
Do any of the participants want to jump in on the non-GMO question?
So I'll contribute a little to kick it starting. I think GMO is a case study for plant-based products. We mostly, I think everyone in the audience agree that plant-based products are good for global health because of the affordability and animal cruelty and its power to drive down an antibiotic crisis. However, it's a tech-driven product, and that can be challenging because for decades of times, non-GMO GMO products is seen still today by 45% of the consumers as something that have questions around if it's healthy for their bodies. So I think especially for new ingredients that possibly is healthy for our bodies, if the message is not communicated in the right way, consumers might not be willing to adopt it. So I think that's where branding and messaging comes into play, in that you want to make sure it's a smooth, frictionless experience for consumers to adopt cheap, healthy products that they don't have doubts about.
Yeah, I find the GMO issue interesting because if you take Impossible Burger, for example, right? And so major disruption if they're able to impact the amount of animals that are slaughtered and grown in these horrible cafe situations, major greenhouse reduction, major environmental impact reduction. Yet on the other hand, it is GMO. They've taken something from soybean or beet, I forget exactly, but they've genetically modified the soybean in order for it to have a certain taste profile. Right, it's the heme, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they've modified something. They've taken heme from something and added it to soybeans. And so you've got all this goodness here, but then you've got monoculture of soybean and the risks of all that monoculture and the impact on the environment of that monoculture. And so, there are other GMOs too, right? That we've been modifying crops for ages and ages, but it's recently we've been modifying them in a way in certain times solely to make them more producible, less pest or more pest resistant, etc. So we can flood them with all these crazy pesticides, right? And make them resistant to Roundup and crazy stuff like that. And you're like, man, it's such a bad idea. And so the anti-GMO, I'm like, yeah, we don't want to make crops that are resistant to Roundup and glyphosate in order for us to just eat cheaper food. Like there needs to be a stop on that. So I feel like to me, at least personally, it's not a clear-cut GMO is bad. But I certainly understand the origins of why people were so passionate about doing non-GMO, because it took us to some bad places.
Exactly. It's quite a controversial topic even after all these years. Now the time is 6:30 and we have promised a secret break time activity. I'm going to present to you Rochelle, who recently became a certified yoga instructor. She's also an area